Hey everyone, and welcome back to Flex Offenders. Plenty of rappers have gotten themselves into trouble in the past, but today we're featuring 10 rappers who destroyed their careers in seconds. Some offenders on today's list are definitely worse than others, but they've got a lot of apologies to make in one way, shape, or form. We doubt that any of these artists will be able to make people forget what they did, and we're sure that their careers are officially over at this point. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Flex Offenders. Also comment trouble and we'll give a lucky winner a shout out in the next video. 10. Chris Brown. When Chris Brown had it out with Rihanna, who he was dating at the time, things ended up getting violent and he was totally okay with leaving her bruised and battered when he used his fists instead of his words. He was then charged with felony assault, along with felony criminal threats, which is no small matter. He ended up being sentenced to 5 years of probation and had to take on 1,400 hours of community service. Since then, he's constantly found himself in trouble and has become more and more prone to violence. He obviously hasn't learned from his past mistakes, and that's something that his old fans will never forgive him for. He's also violated his probation multiple times, landing him back in court on numerous occasions. He even ended up serving 108 days in jail because of one of these infractions. And we think he should own up to his mistakes and tone down his behavior. Then again, that won't do anything to salvage his ruined career, and it's clear these days that nobody wants anything to do with him, which will make it hard for him to make any sort of comeback in the future. 9. Lil Wayne. After going out of his way to say some pretty rough things about civil rights icon Emmett Till, Lil Wayne was forced to make a public apology, and he's been struggling to get his career back on track ever since. He really put his foot in his mouth when he was featured on Future's Karate Chop remix, and we can't even begin to imagine why he thought that using Till as a subject would be okay, especially in the way that he did. We're not about to repeat what he said here, but if you're interested, then you can check out the track for yourself, along with the open letter of apology that he wrote to the entire Till family. On that note, we also think that his open letter was more of a publicity stunt than anything else, and that he should have taken the hit and sent that letter privately. But the way that he did things suggests that he was just trying to save face. We doubt that he gave his lyrics much thought because he really should have known just how upsetting they would be to so many people. Lil Wayne has since tried to change tack, even going so far as to be featured on a Ghost Recon commercial, seemingly trying to ingratiate himself to gamers because his last set of fans want nothing to do with him anymore. 8. Takashi 6ix9ine. While he's been able to maintain some of his fan base, Takashi 6ix9ine's career is pretty much over, and we doubt he'll be able to make a comeback once he finished up his very serious sentence. He's been thrown in prison for hooking up with a minor and taping the entire thing, which ended up being leaked not too long after it happened. He's also gotten himself in trouble for armed robbery and conspiracy to commit murder, which isn't something that anyone can bounce back from for the most part. Takashi 6ix9ine's career was doing fairly well up to that point, and his tune Gumo peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 100 list.
We're gonna make the fucking Billboard again. It's fucking Treyway!
He had it all and threw it all away because deep down, it seems like he's a really nasty person who doesn't seem to care who he hurts in an attempt to bolster his image as a rapper. His career had just started to take off when he ended up being locked up, and we think that he deserves what he got. We could be wrong, but we doubt he'll be able to make a resurgence when he's finally released from prison. Some people will probably always support him, but the majority of his fans are happy to simply walk away at this point and admit that he wasn't quite the rap superstar that they originally thought he was.
Stupid!
7. Azealia Banks. Angry and racist tweets will get pretty much anyone in trouble these days, and Azealia Banks found that out the hard way when her account was permanently shut down in an attempt by Twitter to distance themselves from her unnecessary feuds with a wide range of celebrities.
I don't care. Your problems with me are not my problems. Those are your problems.
She's had it out with Lady Gaga, Cardi B, Lil Kim, Perez Hilton, Sky Jackson, and even Zayn Malik. She obviously hasn't learned her lesson and has continued her beef on other social media platforms, even having it out with the crew on her Aer Lingus flight. She doesn't seem to think that she's the problem and is constantly making herself out to be a victim when it's clear that she's just acting like a spoiled brat. She's foul-mouthed, and it's clear now that she's a bit of a serial racist, which hasn't earned her any new fans recently. She doesn't care who she lashes out at in an attempt to make herself feel better about whatever issues she's got going on. And while she did enjoy a brief stint as a star rapper, she's thrown all that out the window because she's proven time and time again that she simply can't act right. 6. Ja Rule. Ja Rule thought he had a lot more support from his fans than he actually did when he tried to take on 50 Cent. Their feud got ridiculously out of hand, however, and ended up seeing Ja Rule smack 50 with a baseball bat, even getting the rest of his crew to jump 50 and try to beat him down. That's not even the worst of it, and it seems like he's also got rapper Black Child to do his dirty work for him, with Black Child actually stabbing 50 Cent in an attempt to show his support for Ja Rule. That's all been too much for anyone to take, and all of his fans promptly dropped Ja Rule because they didn't support his actions in the least. He's since toned down the violence after it got him in a ton of trouble, but hasn't been able to drop the beef, releasing a number of diss tracks to try to discredit 50 Cent for good. None of his attempts have stuck, however, and it's just made his temper tantrum look even more silly. Getting his boys to do his dirty work ruined his street cred, and the rest of his fans simply couldn't get on board with him holding on to all of his anger the way he did. 50 Cent has taken all these issues fairly well and hasn't really retaliated much, proving that he's the bigger man in all of this. 5. Cee Lo Green. Date rape isn't something that people take lying down, and when it came to light that Cee Lo Green was accused of sexual battery, along with trying to slip a pill in a woman's drink after he had dinner with her, people understandably lost any respect they had for the artist. He's not quite a rapper, but Cee Lo was definitely worth mentioning today because it turns out that he's not a very good guy when all's said and done. He got booted off The Voice when these issues were brought to light and hasn't been able to redeem himself in the eyes of his fans. The case we brought up earlier ended with Cee Lo pleading no contest to the charges levied against him. He ended up with 3 years of probation, 360 hours of community service, and a judge also insisted that he attend no less than 52 Narcotics Anonymous meetings. In our minds, he got off easy, and if it were up to us, he would have had the book thrown at him. 4. DMX. Once known as one of the greatest rappers of all time, DMX has definitely fallen from grace, and when he fell, he really fell hard. He got himself mixed up in some seriously shady stuff, including drug abuse, animal cruelty, burglary, and gun charges. He even found himself in a ton of trouble for driving while under the influence of both drugs and alcohol. He's even tried to impersonate an FBI agent before trying to carjack a vehicle, like anyone would believe that he was a Fed. At JFK Airport, he got caught for both the drugs and a weapon, making things so much worse than they had to be when he tried, unsuccessfully, to argue his way through security anyway. His rap sheet is pretty prolific, and he's been arrested for so many things that nobody in the rap game wants to be seen with him because they rightfully figure that their reputation will end up just as tarnished as his if they're seen being friendly towards him. DMX has done so much shady stuff that even his most die-hard fans can't get on board with his actions anymore. And he hasn't been able to do much to save his career. Instead, he's just been digging his own grave, one incident at a time, for coming on a couple of decades now. And he's slowly sunk into obscurity because he just can't seem to learn from his past mistakes. 3. Remy Ma. After a prolific rap career, Remy Ma threw it all away after shooting a woman who she claims stole from her. As it turns out, she made a lot of assumptions that weren't true, and the woman in question was undoubtedly innocent. That still didn't stop her from catching a bullet fired by Remy Ma, who refused to even admit that she had shot the poor woman. Remy Ma then rifled through the woman's purse as she lay bleeding on the ground, driving away without looking back. That was a pretty cold move, to say the least, and she caught a lot of heat for her actions. She was also charged with witness tampering during the trial, which is no small offense. The rapper sent one of her friends to beat up a witness's boyfriend to try and get her to keep her mouth shut, which of course backfired spectacularly, only serving to get her in even more trouble. She was locked up for 6 years and hasn't been able to get her career back on track since. 2. Bob. Bob should have kept his mouth shut when it came to his belief that the earth is flat. He's also gotten himself into hot water for being a bit of a creationist. While that didn't lose him many fans, it did turn the rapper into a bit of a joke in the eyes of his fans. What really ruined him was his insistence on continuing to argue that the earth is flat and not round. with many people simply walking away from his crazy theories. 1. Milli Vanilli. A bit of a hit duo back in the 80s and 90s, Milli Vanilli enjoyed a short-lived stint as a famous R&B group before they ended up screwing themselves over. While they were doing their thing, they managed to land the top spot on the Billboard 200 list with their album Girl, You Know It's True. They even won a Grammy for Best New Artist back in 1990. Unfortunately for them, their celebrity status was revoked pretty quick when fans found out that Milli Vanilli were actually lip-syncing a lot of their live performances because their English wasn't quite up to par. That's not something that any recording artist wants people to find out. And this issue was confirmed by an MTV exec who said that she had always suspected that something was amiss. The group ended up taking even more heat when news came to light that they hadn't even sung their own songs on their albums. It seems that they had been busy hiring native English speakers to sing for them. This news was simply too much for their many fans to take, and they all ended up turning their backs on the duo without missing a beat.